when it comes to potential future employers on like what are there things that you can kind of toss into the pie. A couple really big spikes at the end of 2024. US employers only created 73,000 jobs in July. So healthcare added about 55,000 jobs. Welcome back guys to another video. It's been a while since we did one of these, but I think it's very pertinent and relevant to companies, teams, and especially us recruiters to really understand what's going on in the market. There's some pretty exciting stuff happening right now that could impact your career, your jobs, or your business. So listen up and let's get into it. But before we get started, welcome, especially if you're looking for the first time. My name is Preston. I'm a professional recruiter running and scaling my professional agency. Been doing so for over a decade now, which is super crazy for me to say, but excited for you to be here. And so if you are a job seeker, you are someone who's looking to hire, you are a hiring manager or founder and you're curious about the job markets, or maybe you're a recruiter and you run your own solo practice and you're curious about what's going on in the more kind of macro political economical sense, this video is just for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So a lot of exciting data here, guys. So as you can see, we're sharing two different charts on this first slide to really kind of demonstrate without really going into it. You can just basically be able to do a gut check here just from the data alone. There is obvious some sort of a weakening of the market, right? That's happening. So on the left, you see a little bit of the non-farm payroll employment month-over-month change, seasonally adjusted from 2023 to 2025. You can see we had a pretty steady pace throughout 2023 with a couple spikes, with a slight overall decline, a couple really big spikes at the end of 2024, but now coming into January 2025 of this year, it's been pretty stable for the first kind of, I would say, quarter, a little bit lower than what we're seeing 2023 levels. But as you can see, after April, May, June, July, we're seeing a small little dip there as well. Same with the chart on the right. This is the chart that represents the July jobs. That kind of shorts basically how it's just falling short of expectations. US employers only created 73,000 jobs in July, well short of the 100,000 that were expected for May and June. So as you can see, of the monthly job creation, we're in a slight little decline. But if you're freaking out, that is not doom or gloom yet, guys, just make sure you pay attention to the end of this video, as we have a lot of great recommendations and advice for you recruiters and business owners on what to expect. As you can see here, May and June were really small, just small little nubbins there. And the reason why was because they were actually revised further downward by more than 250,000 combined. So again, employers added just short of 73,000 jobs in July. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're getting a lot of the data from them. And just to kind of really make it clear, it was clearly lower than expected. Very weak job numbers, relatively speaking, and not something one would expect in a very strong economy.
Are you completely lost on how to implement AI or automation in your business? Are you struggling with getting responses from new clients? Are you an established recruiter who is struggling to level up or break six figures and beyond? Or do you have no idea how to even start a successful recruitment business at all, whether it's full-time or part-time? If any of these resonate with you, please check out the Recruiter School, a premier educational and coaching program that will teach you everything I've learned in the past decade that has helped me bill over $5 million on my own desk, where I had also the chance to work with the best companies in the world. You'll learn everything from what is the best ATS to how to master client acquisition, what are the best plugins and tools, what are the best platforms to find candidates on, how do you optimize your website and even LinkedIn profile, or how do you actually systematize your workflow with the best AI and automation. The best part, we will also personally handhold and be with you every step of the way through our one-on-one coaching, just to make sure you understand and implement everything perfectly. But don't just take my word for it. Since we launched, the number of success stories that we created have truly been jaw-dropping and amazing. Whether it's making 5 figures part-time, to picking up their first clients within the first couple days to a week, to now making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per month consistently, I could go on and on and on. So if you're interested to learn more, make sure you click on the link below to book a time. Since our schedule books up really fast, make sure you reach out quickly. See you on the other side.
Now, to give you more context, economists typically generally think that the US economy needs to have roughly 80 to 100,000 jobs per month added just to keep up with the bare minimum population growth, right? What we're seeing here is just a really weakening market, a very soft market. It's absolutely not Armageddon. It's not disastrous, but these are very weak job numbers, relatively speaking, and not something one would expect in a very strong economy. Job growth has further averaged around 35,000 in the past 3 months here when accounting for the revised data. By contrast, job growth averaged around 111,000 per month in the first 3 months of 2025, as you guys can see here and also here. May and June's job totals, again, just to kind of go back to this, were also revised pretty sharply, which is what you're seeing on the right here, cutting a combined 258,000 jobs from earlier estimates. These revisions essentially suggest that hiring during the spring was not as robust as we would have loved to believe and hope, which basically overall tempers optimism optimism regarding the labor market's resilience amidst policy and macroeconomic challenges that are going on in the US right now. Revisions for May and June were obviously larger than normal, but the change in total non-farm payroll employment for May was revised down by 125,000 from 144,000 to 19,000, and the change for June was revised down by 133,000 from 147,000 to 14,000. So essentially with these revisions, employment in May and June combined is a staggering 258,000 lower than previously expected. But again, this just kind of gives you a little snapshot of the latest numbers that we're seeing coming into August. Now, what about unemployment? So as you can see, unemployment was super high coming out of 2021. It was up in exceeding 6%, and it basically fell down here in a pretty sharp slope, only to kind of like stabilize here in 22, 23, only to kind of increase again. But as you can see, from mid-2024 onward, we're kind of seeing not too much of more of a climb upward. It's more of just like, it's just ranging sideways, which is great. It's not terrible news, but it's also not bad news. So what we're seeing here is the unemployment rate essentially ticked up slightly to 4.2%, but it has stayed in a narrow range, which I just talked to, roughly between 4% to 4.2 since May 2024. The unemployment rate has remained mostly steady because of the supply of workers has declined, along with the slowdown in hiring demand on the other side to kind of balance it out. Now, to touch briefly, and again, this is not a political channel or geopolitical channel at all, but a lot of things are happening as well. So for instance, tariff policies that are impacting this country internationally, it compounds additional headwinds, such as immigration policies that has reduced the amount of available workers, cuts to the federal workforce and government spending, and overall higher interest rates that can explain a little bit about the context about what we're seeing here right now. Another important thing is that the labor force participation rate fell to its lowest level since 2022. This is potentially further evidence of, again, the current administration's immigration, in addition to their tariff policies and the crackdown that's happening, keeping undocumented kind of immigrants and migrants away from labor markets, even though they remain in the country. The share of unemployed Americans who are long-term employed, meaning that they've been out of work for more than 6 months, has actually increased to nearly 25% from 21.6% since July 2024. So a couple interesting things to kind of keep in note there. Now, when it comes to layoffs, one silver lining for workers is that layoffs remain near historical lows. Obviously, when the pandemic happened in 2020, like this is just insane to kind of look at again. But if you kind of zoom in a little bit, we're kind of ranging here in similar levels. But with that said, an environment of just like low layoffs, hiring, and quitting just creates overall a very challenging scenario and situation just for job seekers, in addition to obviously companies that are hiring and recruiters who are servicing them. Now, this is really interesting. We kind of pulled this from the BLS report in terms of the different sectors, right? So in July, as you can see here, the easiest winner is healthcare. So healthcare added about 55,000 jobs above the average monthly gain of 42,000 over the past 12 months, which is huge. Over the month, job gains occurred specifically in ambulatory health, care services, and also hospitals. Social assistance were also like a runner-up here in terms of employment numbers, continue to trend upward in July, adding about 18,000 jobs, reflecting continued job growth in individual and family services, which added roughly around 21,000. Federal government employment, unfortunately, they were one of the biggest losers right now, continued to decline in July, lost about 12,000 and is down by 84,000 since reaching essentially a peak in January this year. It's also important to note that for these employees on paid leave or those receiving ongoing severance pay are also counted as employed in the survey. Employment showed little change month over month in other major industries, including like mining, quarrying, oil and gas, construction, manufacturing, wholesale trade, retail trade, transportation, warehousing, information and financial activities, professional business services, leisure hospitality, and other services. So again, while there are clear winners and clear losers here, and while we are seeing overall just a softening of the market, again, it's not all doom and gloom. I am not freaking out. Absolutely should not freak out at all. There's still amazing opportunities, especially for recruiters working for themselves at their agencies, to be able to engage with specific sectors and companies in said sectors. Now, with that said, and while you may at this point feel like down and heavy, like, oh my God, is this going to be like this for the rest of the year? Or what can we expect moving forward? I also got some more practical advice for recruiting teams and recruiters out there that I hope that could help. So number one, you want to really prepare for slower hiring conditions, obviously, right? So try to diversify your book of business on perhaps recession or resilient sectors. The way that I like to kind of really explain things here is basically, while it's important for us to be specialized in our niche, specialized in our respective markets, it's also really, really important to be business owners and to make the best decisions to be able to push your business forward, right? And if that means that your sector and your market is being absolutely slammed, there's no point trying to extract juice from a squeezed orange, where perhaps it makes sense temporarily in the short term to go into other markets that make the most sense. And then you can always, of course, go back to your primary market. Internal teams should also focus on hiring with more of a conservative lens. I know it's very easy, especially in the tech world, to to raise a ton of money and go bangbusters, but there's also just a lot of implications and a lot of things that are happening, micro, macro, domestically, internationally, that could be helpful, adding a little bit more of a conservative lens, right? So I'm all about having aggressive hiring. Us recruiters love that, but perhaps maybe just right now with the way that things are looking, be a little bit more conservative, right? I'd rather just kind of under promise, over deliver and manage expectations here. The second thing is shift more towards sectors that are hiring robustly. This is something that I just touched upon before. Specifically things I talked about like healthcare, family services are doing really well. Ambulatory care, hospitals could be a great plan B, could be a great hedge to your primary market. You also want to anticipate longer times to fill in other industries, right? So flat hiring, slowing hiring may lead to fewer openings and just more competition. Build deeper relationships and focus on nurture sequences. And while a lot more competition doesn't sound great, I also love the deeper relationships and nurture sequences because that's what this business and this industry of recruiting is all about. It's a people-to-people business. And I think it's very easy to focus on the transactions and numbers constantly, but it's all about nurturing the current relationships that we have, the ones that we've activated, worked in the past, and really focusing on those, because one good client that can give you a stable 20, 50 roles is much better than having to chase 20 to 50 new clients giving you one role, and there's no guarantee that client is actually going to be really good. So I think it's a huge focus right now. To me and my team specifically, is all about relationships and nurturing all the way. Double down on passive candidates. So of course, there's going to be a flood of active candidates because of layoffs, because of all the things that are happening just around the country. But I think it's even more important, depending on your niche, to really double down on passive candidates, really focusing on nurturing, reactivation campaigns, really think about creating incentives, work options, really advocate for your candidates when it comes to potential future employers on like what are there things that you can kind of toss into the pie to get people more excited if they're just overall more of a theme and reticence and unwillingness to go out there and get a new job. More people are happy, more people are gun shy. They want to get new jobs less. So it's our jobs as recruiters to not only pitch for our clients and do that better, but also how do we sweeten the pie, right? How do we be able to kind of expand the incentives and options to get people more excited to want to change jobs in a economic downturn that we are experiencing right now? So these are a couple really big things to think about. Last but not least, is government dead? Obviously, it's been slammed. And if you're here in the US, unfortunately, just a huge mass layoffs are happening in the government sector. Again, down 84,000 since January. It obviously could further suggest ongoing budget constraints, restructuring, but perhaps like you can also pivot towards state, local, or even contractual providers to hedge against like the layoffs and also just the slowing down of hiring in general. There are also, what's really interesting is 4.7 million people are working part-time for economic reasons due to layoffs, due to the difficulty of getting new jobs. So perhaps this could be a good opportunity for teams, for recruiters to really look into and offer more part-time flexible options, more incentives there, possibly train current recruiters, upskill them to more flexible part-time roles. More employers will be gun-shy or wanting to wait more and kind of sit it out more before they buy. So I think this could also just be like another trend of increasing more opportunities for contracting, fractional services for recruitment instead of the traditional like retained or, direct placement contingent, which are still very much alive and you can absolutely still convert clients in that. But I think like fractional contracting, it might mean a little bit less money up front, but it also could mean more stable money in the short term while you're kind of looking for those really great placement fees on the retained side, the exclusive side, or maybe the direct placement side. Overall though, guys, everything is okay. Market isn't officially in a recession. We've been talking about a recession for the last 5 years. Every year is a recession, right? Especially here in the US. There are mixed signals. That's not just bad news, that's also good news, right? So I think it's also up to us, and I'm happy to help to pay attention to the data. What are the BLS reports saying? Q3, Q4 growth, interest rates, inflation data. All of this could be really great predictors in terms of what we can experience in the market, at least in the next coming quarter or a couple to several months. And so I think it's really, really important, guys, to really focus on relationships here, really focus on passive candidates here. Of course, go after the sectors that are doing well. And perhaps if you're in a sector like government, you're just specialized on that, try to think outside the box, try to go beyond your niche, try to go beyond maybe the different types of services, and maybe even look into state or local providers of services if that makes sense. But I think this may not seem like, oh my God, the market is crazy, we're going up like a rocket ship, we're flying to Mars. With every down dip, it's always temporary and it's always going to go up, right? So I think the recruiters and teams that are able to really make sure they're not too aggressive right now, they're able to really have good discipline, good foundation right now. Once the market stabilizes even more and continues to kind of move upward, I think that's an amazing time for all of us to really be able to capitalize and ride those waves. So I hope you like this. If you want to see more like this video, let me know. Happy to make this video and happy to share more about just more economic data stuff that we're seeing economically, and hope it truly helps you all. So thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.